Well, thank you everyone for attending. I was going to introduce myself, but Lou, you did such a brilliant job, so I might just get into it a little bit. Ben Carmichael, Solutions Consultant here at Medallia, and I've been involved in the customer experience industry for the last 10 years. Who is Medallia? They're a leader in customer experience. We have been around for over 20 years, and we work with organisations across all industries. Apple, Vodafone, and everyone in between. What I'm going to talk to you today about is how we see CX leaders leveraging first-party data to actually drive action and how they differ to the laggards in the industry. What I really want you to take out of it is two things. I'm going to introduce Sally throughout this discussion, and I really want you to think around the wow experience that Sally experiences. And then secondly, I'm going to give you some tactical tips around how you can actually build a connected customer within your organisation. So without further ado, let's get into it. Businesses think in channels, customers don't. What do I mean by that? Ultimately, as organisations, we purchase technology to solve a certain problem. In the contact centre, we may invest in Genesis to take calls. Within the digital space, we may invest in Google Analytics to understand behaviours. And then within the email space, we may invest in Salesforce Marketing Cloud or something of the likes to distribute emails. Now, these technologies serve a certain purpose, but what software providers often don't want you to do is connect the dots between those because they inevitably want to sell you more technology. Unfortunately, customers don't think like this. And what it leads to is fragmented customer experiences because they aren't able to get a seamless experience across different channels. And quite frankly, customers don't care that your tech is fragmented. They don't care that John in the contact centre doesn't speak to Bob in the digital space. They want to have a seamless experience no matter what touch point. Today, customers, just like businesses, expect to get ROI from the data that they share with your business. How many of you accept cookies on a website and actually yield no value from that? How many of you speak to people in the contact center knowing that they're leveraging or analysing that data but don't see any benefit from it? What we're starting to see as customers is that they're expecting insights or personalisation to be provided with the information that they share. And if they don't get that, they'll vote with their feet. What I mean by that is that, as we can see here, 75% of consumers tried a new shopping behaviour during the pandemic. And reading between the lines, what that really means is that customers aren't as loyal as they have been historically. There's so much choice out there, and so if you're not providing a supreme customer experience to customers, they will leave. And so what does supreme customer experience actually mean? This is where the concept of personalisation comes into things. 71% of consumers expect personalisation, and pretty much all of them get frustrated if they don't receive it. And so you would expect that as organisations, we're adhering to the requests and the demands of our customers, wouldn't you? And unfortunately, that's not the case. So a recent survey by CMS Wire, this was shared earlier this year, showcases how many organisations are actually providing one-to-one or hyper-personalised experiences. And you can see quite clearly in the graph here that only 6% of organisations are actually doing this. On the other side of things, 17% of organisations aren't actually doing any personalisation at all, and a large proportion are still stuck in that one-to-many framework whereby they're using static segmentational lists to actually deliver pre-planned email campaigns to customers. And so if we just break this down, it's clear that customers want more personalisation, but it's also evident through this that organisations aren't adhering to that. And so the question that I want to answer today is why? The answer is creating a view of the connected customer is hard. And what I want to take you through in this bland looking graph right now is why it is so hard. What I'm going to take you through in a second is what we typically see and what we refer to as a CX maturity curve at Medallia, and what friction points organizations actually get throughout this process. So first off, a lot of organizations typically start with capturing solicited feedback. This is usually survey feedback that we capture across multiple touch points. And if I was speaking to you 10 years ago, this is what customer experience would be all about. But over time, we've begun to see and understand that customers actually interact with us across a multitude of different channels, and we're able to obtain or capture what we refer to as observed data from these customers. This may be in the form of digital analytics, where we actually look at the behaviour on users' digital properties and see how they're interacting. Or it could be in the form of conversational analytics, where we actually run analytics over the top of speech transcriptions or open text data that we can capture. Now, as we evolve across the maturity curve, organizations also evolve in their need to capture more customer data. And what happens is we get to this junction point here. And this part of the slide looks messy because it ultimately is. Pretty much what happens within organizations is that we come to realize that we have a number of different platforms and siloed data sets that we need to stitch together. Now, I'm sure a lot of you leverage Salesforce, Adobe Analytics, Google Analytics, a survey platform, telephony platform, and probably social media tools. And the big question that we really need to start solving is how can we begin to connect all of this data together to build that desired omnichannel or single view of the customer. There's some limitations in being able to do this, and why it's so difficult is twofold. First off, there's a lot of technology to connect, and I fully appreciate that. But second of all, and there's stats to back this up, the ability to actually connect information within organizations is limited by the fact that different departments don't speak to each other. So as CX leaders or as CMOs within this space, it's really up to you to start connecting the dots between your data, but also your organization to ensure that you can build this omnichannel view of your customer. And why does this matter? Because if you can get it right, you can begin to orchestrate customer experiences. Now, that's a big buzz term, and I'll go into what that actually means, but it's really around leveraging your first-party data across all different touch points to start providing personalized experiences to your customers. And when we start to think around all of the information that we capture from customers right now, I think you and I can both agree that we're not leveraging that information effectively to orchestrate or to provide that wow experience to customers. So just to recap on the previous slide, creating a connected view of the customer is difficult. I fully appreciate that. But what I want to take you through in this slide here is how CX leaders demonstrate that it's worth it. Now, before I go through this scenario, let's talk around the numbers. McKinsey recently quoted that personalization can add between 10 to 20% of additional revenue to your bottom line. That's hyper-personalization, leveraging data to actually act at scale. But more importantly than that, personalization, through this example and a couple of others that I'll go through, is really there to wow your customers. Let's start to think around how we can leverage information to make your customers' experiences better. And so with that being said, I want to introduce you to my friend Sally. Sally's in the market for a new luxury car. And for those that don't work in luxury, please don't be worried. I'll go through a few examples to make it relevant. But stick with me here with Sally, who ultimately wants to build her dream car. So what she does is she heads online to build her dream car. While she's on the website, she's looking at pet accessories for the car. She loves her dog and she loves to travel with her dog. Mid-search, though, Sally's a busy woman and she gets distracted and closes her web browser. Now, in a typical scenario, this would be the end of the journey for Sally. We've probably paid a lot of money to acquire Sally, and she's got midway through the journey and has subsequently bounced, and we've lost that budget. But what happens in this scenario is that we trigger a reminder to Sally via email, prompting her or reminding her that she still needs to build her car. That prompt allows her to finish building her car and subsequently ensures that she books a test drive in the dealership. Now, that information is then aggregated and is passed on to the dealership, the sales rep at the dealership, providing him with next best action recommendations as to how you can wow Sally. And so he will log into his system at the dealership and will see a recommendation as to how to provide a great experience to Sally. With that information he's provided, he calls Sally and asks her to bring her dog to the test drive. What an odd question. But what happens next is phenomenal. Sally arrives and is delighted when she sees the dog ramp set up for her, which allows her to take her dog in the car on the test drive. Now, forgetting about revenue or forgetting about anything that allows Sally to buy the car, let's just think around how she felt in this situation. She is stoked with the fact that she has been given a personal situation and she's been empathized with ultimately, allowing her to bring her dog into the test drive. This personalization allows her not only to establish trust with the brand, but I can nearly guarantee you that she will go and tell her friends about the wow experience that she had. And the only way that that wow experience could have occurred was if you were able to stitch together the data between your digital channels, your online channels, and your offline channels. Now, that's a luxury car example, and I can fully appreciate it. It may not apply to all businesses here. And so I just want to give a couple of other examples as to how this could work within your organisation. I haven't prepared slides for these, but I'll just anecdotally give the examples. So imagine Sally now orders some food online via M&S, and she has an online delivery which is damaged. She calls the contact centre to complain about that online delivery. She's not too happy. Next week, she goes into an M&S store and scans her loyalty card when purchasing a product. On the point of sale system, if she's using self-service, or if she speaks to a self-service checkout attendant, what she's presented with is an apology for her bad experience online. Now, that costs your organisation no money. We're not providing her with a coupon. We're just apologising to her for her bad experience. But the wow factor that that has on Sally, and the fact that she can then tell her friends that this brand has actually shown care for her, is how personalisation and connected customer experiences can drive better outcomes. The final example I'll leave you with before moving on is an insurance example, but this is practical pretty much for every organisation. Imagine that Sally has car insurance with a certain brand, and she goes onto the car insurance's website, but we notice that she's actually browsing for home insurance. Immediately, we're able to understand the intent is different compared to her current product set, and what we can trigger to the contact centre or even to an email campaign is a notification or a next best action to manage Sally. And so immediately, leveraging again different data sets across your organisation, we can have context-driven discussions with Sally to ensure that she's able to get what she needs, and equally allow the business to drive incremental revenue or upsells. And so there are quite a few examples as to how this concept of connecting data within your organisation can drive better business outcomes, but also better customer outcomes. So my real call to action here is, what are you doing well, my call to action, my question, is what are you doing with your customer data right now? Are you stitching it together to actually make it beneficial for a customer, or are you storing it in a database, a CDP if you call it, that allows you to understand great things about your customers, but you're not activating it to the best of your ability? And if you're in that latter segment, I want to leave you with 5 real tangible steps that you can really take to start activating your first-party data across your organization. Step number 1 has nothing to do with technology. It's all around figuring out the systems that you need to identify and then unlocking that data across all of your customer touchpoints. And the stats that I referred to before around technology silos and organization silos are critical to this. If you can ensure that the right teams within your business are speaking to each other, I can guarantee you that you can get to a point where you understand the holistic view of the customer. Once you do that, once you understand the different tech and the different teams who owns this data, it's all around stitching this data together. Now, I'm not going to get too technical here, but there is definitely an art in how you do this, and this is where our technology can come into play. You do require identifiers across different touch points, and we do need to validate and authenticate your customers across those touch points. But with the technology that we're able to produce and our experience orchestration tool, we can work with you to actually connect the dots and to build that view that you can see on the right-hand side here. And to that point, step number 3 is all around visualizing how customers interact with your brand. We've been taught that customer journey mapping is quite linear in nature. There's all journey maps we see starts at a certain point and ends at a certain point, which is generally horizontal. In reality, that's not the case. Different customers interact in different ways. And so what our technology allows you to do is to see the different ways that customers are going from point A to B, and to also recognize the drop-off points across those journeys. Once we understand the friction points and the drop-off points, we can start to work with you to build areas of use cases or areas of opportunity where you want to personalize the customer experience a little bit more. And this is where it becomes overwhelming. A lot of organizations think of all of these great ways to personalize or orchestrate customer experiences, but the hardest part is truly getting started. We've got clients that work with us right now that personalize 2 to 3 different journeys, and the ROI that they've seen from that is astronomical. So don't get bogged down in trying to come up with 1,000 different scenarios. Have a look at the highest impactful ones and work with us to figure out how we can deliver better experiences across those touch points. And how you do that is via orchestration. And so we pretty much have a tool that is an engine that operates leveraging your data in real time to surface either recommendations or personalized insights for your customers. So I'll leave you with a statement at the bottom. In its simplest form, although it is complex, you really want to start to listen to customers, learn from the data across all touch points, and then leverage that data to act at scale. Thank you.